The morning was quiet and beautiful. The sun was rising over the ocean near Bizen, and the water looked like liquid gold. Park Tai-ho sat alone on his small fishing boat, drinking hot coffee from an old metal cup. He was 43 years old, with rough hands and a kind face. He had been a fisherman for 20 years. Just like his father before him, Tai-ho liked these early mornings. No noise, no people. Just him, the water, and the fish. His nets were already in the water, and he was waiting patiently. Life was simple, and he was happy with simple things. Then the sky broke open. A terrible sound filled the air. Tai-ho looked up and saw fire. A massive ship was falling from the clouds, burning like a dying star. It was not a plane. It was not anything he had ever seen before. The ship was made of dark metal that seemed to bend light around it. Strange symbols glowed on its surface, even as flames ate through the hull. Tai-ho's radio exploded with voices. Emergency broadcasts, warnings, people screaming about aliens, about danger, about staying away. The government was telling everyone to run. The burning ship crashed into the shallow water only 300 meters from his boat. The impact sent a massive wave toward him. Tai-ho held on tight as his boat rocked wildly. Steam rose from the water where the ship had fallen. The metal was so hot that the ocean itself was boiling. Every smart person would run away. Tai-ho knew this. He knew that alien technology could be poisonous. He knew the ship could explode. He knew he could die, but then he heard something. A scream. High and thin and full of fear. The voice of someone young. Someone trapped. Tai-ho did not think. He pulled off his boots and jumped into the water. The heat was terrible. His skin burned as he swam toward the wreck. The water near the ship was so hot it felt like fire. But he kept swimming. He could still hear the screaming, and that sound pulled him forward like a rope. He found a hole in the side of the ship and climbed inside. The air was thick with smoke. Strange lights flickered on and off. Everything was broken and burning. He moved through the wreck, following the sound of crying. He found her in a small room at the back of the ship. She was trapped under a heavy metal beam that had fallen from the ceiling. She was not human. Her skin was silver, like moonlight made solid. She had 4 eyes, all of them wide with terror. Her body was thin and small, maybe the size of a human teenager. Blue blood ran from a wound on her head. She was wearing simple gray clothes that looked like a uniform. She saw Tai-ho and screamed louder. She tried to crawl away, but the beam held her down. She thought he was going to hurt her. Tai-ho held up his hand slowly. He did not speak. He just looked at her with calm eyes. Then he pointed at the beam and made a lifting motion. He was asking permission to help. The alien girl stopped screaming. She stared at him with all 4 eyes. She did not understand his language. She did not know what humans were, but she understood that he was not trying to hurt her. She nodded slowly. Tai-ho grabbed the beam and pulled with all his strength. It was heavy, so heavy. His arm shook. His back screamed in pain. But he thought about the fear in her eyes, and he pulled harder. The beam moved. Just enough. He grabbed the girl and pulled her free. She cried out in pain. Her leg was badly hurt, but she was alive. Tai-ho carried her through the burning ship. She was lighter than he expected, like her bones were hollow. She held onto him tightly, her thin fingers gripping his shirt. She was shaking so hard he could feel it in his chest. They reached the hole in the hull. The water outside was still hot, but it was cooling down. Tai-ho jumped in, holding the girl above the surface. He swam with one arm, keeping her head out of the water. It took him 10 minutes to reach his boat. 10 minutes of swimming through warm water while his muscles burned and his lungs screamed for air. 10 minutes of the alien girl, holding on to him like he was the only safe thing in the universe. He pulled her onto the boat and laid her down gently. She was still breathing, but her silver skin was covered in burns. Her 4 eyes were closed now. She had passed out from the pain. Taeho took off his jacket and wrapped it around her. Then he grabbed his radio. "This is Park Taeho," he said, his voice rough from the smoke. "I am 3 kilometers off the coast of Bizen. I have a survivor from the crash. She is hurt badly. She needs help now." The radio was silent for a moment. Then a voice answered, full of shock. "Did you say survivor? The alien ship had a survivor?" "Yes," Taeho said. He looked down at the silver girl on his deck. She was so small, so young, so afraid. "She is just a kid. Please send help." He sat beside her as he waited for rescue. The sun was fully up now, warm on his face. The alien girl shivered in her sleep, and he pulled the jacket tighter around her. He did not know who she was. He did not know where she came from. He did not know if she was important or if her people were friendly or dangerous. He only knew that she had been trapped and scared and alone. He only knew that she had needed help. And Park Taeho was not the kind of man who could ignore someone who needed help. The rescue boats arrived 30 minutes later. Soldiers and doctors and government officials swarmed onto his small fishing boat. They took the alien girl away on a stretcher, handling her like she was made of glass. A young soldier looked at Taeho with wide eyes. "Sir, do you understand what you did? You saved an alien. A real alien. This is the biggest thing that has ever happened." Taeho shrugged. His arms were still shaking from the effort of carrying her. His skin was red from the heat. "She was scared," he said simply. "She was hurt. What else was I supposed to do?" The soldier had no answer for that. On the stretcher, the silver girl opened her eyes for just a moment. She looked at Taeho. She did not smile because her people did not smile. But something in her eyes changed. Something soft. Something grateful. Then they took her away. And Park Taeho was left alone on his boat with the morning sun and the memory of a girl made of moonlight. He did not know it yet, but he had just changed the entire galaxy. The video spread across Earth like fire in dry grass. Someone on one of the rescue boats had filmed everything. They filmed Park Taeho swimming toward the burning alien ship. They filmed him climbing inside. They filmed him carrying the silver girl out of the wreck and swimming to safety with her in his arms. Within 6 hours, every person on Earth had seen the video. Within 12 hours, it had reached the nearest alien communication networks. Within 24 hours, the entire galaxy was watching. The alien girl's name was Nari. She was 17 cycles old, which was close to 17 human years. She belonged to a species called the Valari, who had ruled 12 star systems for over 1,000 years. The Valari were known for 2 things: their psychic powers and their strict social system. Every Valari was born with the ability to touch other minds. They could read thoughts, send messages without speaking, and even control weaker creatures. This power made them one of the most feared species in the galaxy. But Nari was different. She had been born without the gift. Among the Valari, this made her worthless. She had no rights, no family name, no future. She was classified as a servant class defective and sold to a minor trade ship as a cleaning girl. She scrubbed floors and washed dishes and slept in the cargo hold with the supplies. The ship that crashed on Earth was carrying her to a new owner. She was not a passenger. She was cargo. When the ship's engines failed and the crew escaped in life pods, nobody thought to save her. She was not worth saving, but now she lay in a hospital bed in Seoul, surrounded by human doctors who treated her like she mattered. They cleaned her wounds. They gave her medicine for the pain. They spoke to her gently, even though she could not understand their words. Ambassador Cam Mireille stood before the United Nations emergency meeting and explained everything. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and a calm voice. She had spent 20 years working in alien relations, and she had never seen anything like this. "The Valari Empire has made contact," she told the assembly. "They want Nari back. They say she is their property." The room exploded with angry voices. Property? A thinking, feeling person was property? Ambassador Kang raised her hand for silence. "The Valari have different laws than we do. In their society, individuals without psychic ability are considered less than citizens. They can be bought and sold like objects." "That is slavery," the French representative said, his face red with anger. "Yes," Ambassador Kang agreed. "It is." Outside the hospital in Seoul, thousands of people had gathered. They held signs that said, "Nari is human to us," and "Protect her," and "We stand together." News cameras broadcast their faces to the world. Park Tae-ho stood at the front of the crowd. He had not slept in 2 days. Reporters pushed microphones into his face and asked him questions in a dozen languages. "Why did you save her?" they asked. "Did you know she was an alien? Were you scared? What do you want to happen now?" Tae-ho answered the same way every time. "I heard someone screaming. I saw someone who needed help. I helped. That is all." But it was not all. 3 hours after the United Nations meeting, a Valari warship appeared in orbit above Earth. It was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long, covered in weapons that human scientists could not even identify. The ship blocked out the stars like a hungry shadow. The Valari commander sent a message to every government on Earth at the same time. His name was High Marshal Dokkan, and his voice was cold and hard like frozen iron. "The defective unit known as Nari is property of the Valari Empire. You will return her immediately. If you refuse, we will take her by force. You have 12 hours. The message played on every screen on the planet. People watched in fear. The Valari were ancient and powerful. Humanity had only been traveling in space for 50 years. Their technology was primitive compared to the great empires of the galaxy. But something strange happened. Instead of fear, people felt anger. Instead of wanting to surrender, they wanted to fight. In Seoul, the crowd outside the hospital grew larger. In New York, people marched through the streets chanting Nari's name. In Tokyo, in London, in Cairo, in Sao Paulo, in cities all over the world, humans gathered together and said the same thing. Park Tae-ho was brought to meet with the Korean president and the military leaders. They asked him what he wanted them to do. He looked at them with tired eyes. "She is a child," he said. "She was alone and scared and hurt. Her own people threw her away like garbage. And now they want her back so they can sell her again?" He shook his head slowly. "No, I did not pull her out of that fire just to give her back to the people who left her to die." The president nodded. She was a small woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen many difficult things. "The Valari are powerful," she said. "If we refuse, they might attack us." "Then they attack us," Tae-ho said. "But we do not give her to them. Some things are more important than safety." His words were broadcast around the world. And everywhere, people agreed. In her hospital bed, Nari watched the news on a screen she did not fully understand. She saw the crowds of humans gathering for her. She saw Park Tae-ho speaking for her. She saw an entire planet standing up against an empire, all for one worthless alien girl. She did not understand. Her whole life, she had been told she was nothing. She had been told she did not matter. She had accepted this as truth, as natural as gravity. But these strange creatures with their soft skin and their 2 eyes looked at her like she was precious. They held signs with her name. They shouted and marched and refused to let her go. A human nurse came to check on her wounds. The nurse had a kind face and gentle hands. She did not speak Valari, so she could not explain anything. But she smiled at Nari and patted her hand softly before leaving. Nari lay in the bed and stared at the ceiling. She did not know what tears were. Her species did not cry. But something was happening inside her chest. Something warm and painful and confusing. For the first time in her life, someone had decided she was worth fighting for. The 12 hours passed, and humanity gave its answer. Every nation on Earth, united for the first time in history, sent the same message to the Valari warship. Nari stays with us. If you want her, come and take her. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Admiral Yoon Ha-jin had served in the military for 30 years. She had gray hair cut short like a soldier and eyes that never showed fear. She commanded the Korean Space Defense Force, which was part of Earth's United Military Alliance. She had trained her whole life for this moment. She stood in the command center deep underground, watching screens that showed the Valari warship in orbit. The alien vessel was beautiful in a terrible way, like a knife made of black glass. Its weapons were already powering up, glowing with purple energy that human scientists did not understand. "Admiral," her second officer said, "they are targeting the city of Bizen. They say it is a warning shot. They will destroy an uninhabited island first, then the city if we do not surrender." Admiral Yoon nodded calmly. "Let them fire their warning shot. We will show them ours." The Valari struck first. A beam of purple light shot down from space and hit a small rocky island off the coast of Korea. The island was empty, just rocks and birds. In 1 second, it was gone. Completely gone. Not even dust remained. The message from High Marshal Dokkan came immediately. "That was empty rock. The next shot will be a city. Give us the defective unit." Admiral Yoon smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a hunter who had finally cornered her prey. "You missed," she said into the communication channel. Then she gave the order. For 30 years, Earth had been preparing for this day. Every government on the planet had worked together in secret. They had hidden weapons and satellites that looked like communication relays. They had built defense systems under every major city. They had created technology that they never showed to the galaxy. Humans were young and weak compared to the great empires. But humans were also clever, and they had learned from watching others. They had studied every alien weapon they could find. They had improved on designs that other species had abandoned. They had prepared for the day when someone would come to hurt them. That day had arrived. Around the planet, 300 satellites activated at once. They moved into position, forming a net of fire around Earth. Underground, massive generators powered up, creating shields that covered the major cities. In the oceans, submarines surfaced, their hulls opening to reveal weapons that had never been fired before. The Valari High Marshal stared at his sensors in disbelief. His ships had scanned Earth when they arrived. The planet had shown no major weapons, no real defenses. Just a young species with primitive technology. Now, his screens were filled with targets. Hundreds of targets. Weapons that should not exist on such a backward world. "Impossible," he whispered. Admiral Yoon's voice came through the communication channel, calm and steady. "High Marshal Dokkan, you made a mistake. You looked at humans and saw weakness. You saw a young species with no psychic powers, no empire, no history in space. You thought we would be easy to scare." She leaned forward, her eyes hard. "We are not easy to scare. We have spent our entire history fighting wars we should not win. We crawled out of ice ages. We survived plagues that killed half our population. We rebuilt after we set fire to our own world with nuclear weapons. We are still here." The screens showed the Valari warship shields activating. It was preparing for battle. "You are still only one planet," High Marshal Dokkan said. "We have 12 systems, thousands of ships. Millions of soldiers. You cannot win this war. Maybe not, Admiral Yoon agreed. But we can make you bleed. We can hurt you badly enough that your enemies will smell weakness. And you have many enemies, High Marshal. How many of your conquered peoples are watching right now? How many of them are hoping we show them it is possible to fight back? The High Marshal was silent. He knew she was right. The Valari Empire had crushed many species over the centuries. Those species still remembered. They still hated. If Earth proved the Valari could be hurt, rebellions would spread like wildfire. All of this for one defective servant? He asked finally. She has no value. She cannot even touch minds. She is nothing. Park Tae-ho's voice came through the channel. The Admiral had patched him in, because she wanted the Valari to hear directly from the human who started all of this. She is not nothing, Tae-ho said. She is a child. She was scared and alone and hurt. She did not ask to be born without powers. She did not choose to be thrown away by her own people. But she is alive, and she feels pain, and she deserves better than what you gave her. His voice grew stronger. Humans do not decide who matters based on what they can do. We do not throw away children because they are born different. Maybe that makes us strange. Maybe that makes us weak. But it is who we are, and we will not change for you. The communication channel was silent for a long moment. In orbit. The Valari warship floated above Earth. It had enough power to destroy cities, to burn continents, to crack the planet's surface. High Marshal Dokkan had used these weapons before. He had burned worlds that defied the Empire, but those worlds had not fought back. Those worlds had not looked at him with steady eyes and said, "Come and take her." Something strange was happening in the galaxy. Other species were listening to this conversation. The broadcast was spreading through every network, every station, every corner of known space. The Tarathi Collective, who had been slaves of the Valari for 200 years, sent a message to Earth. We stand with you. The merchant guilds of the Void, who had never taken sides in any conflict, sent ships carrying food and medical supplies toward Earth. The silicon mines, artificial intelligences who had been silent for centuries, broke their long quiet. We are watching with great interest. High Marshal Dokkan looked at his sensors. More ships were appearing at the edge of the solar system. Not attacking ships. Watching ships. Ships from dozens of species who wanted to see what happened next. If he attacked Earth, he would win. He would destroy their cities and take back the worthless servant girl. But the whole galaxy would see the Valari as monsters. And the conquered peoples would see that resistance was possible. The price of one defective servant had suddenly become very high. This is not over, High Marshal Dokkan said finally. The Emperor will hear of this. There will be consequences. Then let there be consequences, Admiral Yoon replied. We are not afraid of consequences. We are afraid of becoming the kind of people who throw away children because they are not useful. The Valari warship's weapons slowly powered down. Not retreating. Not surrendering. Just waiting, watching, trying to decide what to do next. On Earth, people cheered. They danced in the streets and hugged strangers and cried with relief. The aliens had not attacked. The girl was still safe. In her hospital room, Nari watched through the window. Park Tae-ho's daughter, a young medical student named Yuna, sat beside her bed. Yuna had been teaching Nari simple Korean words over the past few days. Words like friend and safe and home. Nari pointed at the celebrating crowds on the screen. She asked a question in her broken new language. Why? She said, Why do this? For me? Yuna took her hand gently. She smiled the way humans smiled, with warmth and kindness. Because you are worth it? Yuna said. Because every person is worth fighting for, even when others say they are not. Nari did not fully understand, but she felt something inside her chest. Something warm that had been growing since the moment Park Tayo pulled her from the flames. Hope. She was feeling hope. And for the first time in her life, she did not feel worthless. 6 days passed with the Valari warship hanging in orbit like a dark cloud. It did not attack. It did not leave. It simply waited while the Emperor decided what to do. During those 6 days, the galaxy changed. Messages poured into Earth from every corner of known space. Some came from governments. Some came from resistance groups hiding in the shadows. Some came from ordinary people who had heard the story of the human fisherman and the worthless alien girl. The Tarathi were first. They were a reptilian species with scales the color of sunset, and the Valari had conquered them 200 years ago. Their leaders sent a secret message to the United Nations. We have watched your stand with great emotion. For 2 centuries, we believed that resistance against the Valari was impossible. You have shown us we were wrong. Whatever happens next, you have already changed history. The merchant guilds came next. They were not a species, but a collection of traders from 100 different worlds. They cared about profit more than anything else. But their oldest leader, a creature made of living crystal, made a rare public statement. The humans have done something we have not seen in 1,000 years. They have acted without calculating the cost. They have protected someone who could give them nothing in return. This is either very foolish or very beautiful. Perhaps both. The silicon mines were the strangest of all. They were artificial intelligences, created by a species that had died long ago. They lived in massive computer networks, floating in deep space. And they almost never spoke to organic life forms, but now they broke their silence with a message that echoed across every communication network in the galaxy. We have observed humanity for 53 of their years. In that time, we have recorded countless acts of kindness, courage, and sacrifice. The humans do not ask what a life is worth before saving it. They do not calculate the value of compassion. They simply act, following an ancient code that they call doing the right thing. We find this fascinating. We find this hopeful. Perhaps the organic species are not as lost as we believed. Inside the Valari Empire, something was stirring. The story had spread to every conquered world, every slave camp, every quiet resistance cell. The servants whispered it to each other in the dark. The slaves hummed it as a song while they worked. A human fisherman dove into fire to save a worthless girl. An entire planet stood against the Empire for her. The great and terrible Valari hesitated. High Marshal Dokkan felt the change even from orbit. His psychic officers reported growing unrest on a dozen worlds. The Emperor was receiving thousands of angry messages from noble families who were embarrassed by this delay. Why had the Empire not crushed these primitive humans already? But the High Marshal knew something the nobles did not. He had felt the minds of Earth's leaders during their confrontation. He had touched their thoughts with his psychic power, expecting to find fear and weakness. Instead, he found something that still made him shiver. He found rage. Not hot rage, not wild and uncontrolled. Cold rage, patient rage. The kind of anger that could wait for years, that could plan and prepare and strike at exactly the right moment. And beneath that rage, he found something even more disturbing. A stubbornness so deep it seemed carved into their very souls. These humans would not surrender. They would not bend. They would burn their own world before they gave up one child to satisfy an empire's pride. The High Marshal had conquered many species. He had broken many rebellions, but he had never seen anything like this. Meanwhile, on Earth, Nari was getting stronger. The burns on her silver skin were healing slowly. Her broken leg was wrapped in a soft cast. She could sit up now, could walk short distances with help. The human doctors were amazed at how quickly she recovered. Park Yuna visited her every day. The young medical student had become Nari's teacher, her translator, her first human friend. She brought pictures of Earth's animals and taught Nari their names in Korean. She explained human customs like smiling and hugging and crying. "Your people do not cry?" Yuna asked one afternoon. Nari shook her head. "No water from eyes. We feel sadness here." She touched her chest. "But nothing comes out." "That sounds lonely," Yuna said softly. "Nar. I thought about this for a long time." "Yes," she finally said. "Lonely. Very lonely." Park Tae-ho came to visit whenever he could. He was a famous man now, his face on every screen, his story told in every language. People called him a hero. They wanted to give him medals and awards and money. He refused everything. "I am just a fisherman," he kept saying. "I did what anyone would do." But Nari knew this was not true. Her own people had left her to die. They had not even thought about saving her. Only this human, this strange creature from a small blue planet, had decided she was worth risking his life for. One evening, Tae-ho sat beside her bed while Yuna translated. He looked tired. The world was asking too much of him, and he was not used to so much attention. "I want to ask something," Nari said carefully in her broken Korean. Tae-ho nodded. "Ask." "In the fire." "On the ship." "Why did you come?" "You did not know me. You did not know what I was. You could have died." Tae-ho was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, and Yuna translated his words. "When I was young, there was a flood in my village. The water came so fast. My mother was trapped in our house. A stranger ran into the water and pulled her out. He almost drowned doing it. Later, I asked him why he did it. He said something I never forgot." Tae-ho looked at Nari with kind eyes. He said, "Because I could hear her screaming, and I could not just walk away. That is all. I heard you screaming, and I could not walk away." Nari felt that strange warmth in her chest again. The feeling that humans called hope. "Your people," she said slowly, "are very different from mine." Tae-ho smiled. "Maybe, but I think somewhere inside all people want to help others. Some people just forget that feeling. Some people teach themselves to ignore it. But it is still there, waiting." He took her small silver hand in his rough brown one. "Maybe your people forgot too. Maybe, someday, they will remember." That night, Nari dreamed for the first time since the crash. She dreamed of a galaxy where no one was thrown away, where every person mattered, no matter how they were born, where creatures with 2 eyes and creatures with 4 eyes stood together and said, "You are worth fighting for." It was a beautiful dream. And when she woke up, she decided to make it real. She did not know how yet. She was just one worthless girl with no psychic powers and no family and no home. But she had something she never had before. She had friends. She had people who believed in her. She had a whole planet that had stood up for her. And she had hope. In orbit, the Valari warship still waited. But the balance of power in the galaxy was already shifting. Species that had been afraid for centuries were starting to whisper about change. The story of humanity's defiance was spreading like light through the darkness. Something new was being born. And it had started with one simple act of kindness. The Emperor of the Valari had ruled for 300 years. His name was spoken with fear across 12 star systems. He had crushed rebellions, destroyed worlds, and built an empire that stretched across the galaxy. He had never bowed to anyone in his entire long life. Now he sat in his throne room, surrounded by advisors, looking at reports that made his blood run cold. The first report showed riots on 7 conquered worlds. The slaves were singing songs about a human fisherman. They were refusing to work. They were looking at their masters with new eyes. Eyes that no longer held fear, The second report listed the species that had publicly supported Earth, Tarathi, merchants, silicon mines, and dozens more. Smaller groups who had been quiet for centuries, but were now finding their voices. The third report was from his own military. It showed that if the Empire attacked Earth now, they would win the battle, but they would lose everything else. The conquered peoples would see the Valari as monsters. The other great empires would smell weakness. Wars would break out everywhere at once. All of this for one worthless servant girl. The Emperor's oldest advisor, a female named Lady Soman, spoke carefully. "Your Majesty, perhaps we should consider why this happened." "Why? What happened?" The Emperor asked coldly. "Why the humans reacted so strongly? Our reports show they have many problems of their own. War, poverty, disease. They're not a perfect species. But when they saw one of ours in danger, they did not hesitate. They did not calculate. They simply helped." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. When was the last time a Valari risked their life for someone who could give nothing in return? The throne room was silent. It was a dangerous question. Valari society was built on power and usefulness. Those who had psychic gifts ruled. Those who did not served. It had been this way for thousands of years, but now a species without any psychic gifts at all had shown something the Valari had forgotten. They had shown that a person's worth did not depend on what they could do. It depended on the simple fact that they existed. The Emperor thought about this for a long time. Finally, he gave his order. The transmission reached Earth at sunrise, Sol time. Every screen on the planet carried the Emperor's face. He was old, with silver skin darker than Nari's and 6 eyes that had seen centuries of history. "People of Earth," he said, his voice heavy, "the Valari Empire formally recognizes your sovereignty. We withdraw all claims to the individual known as Nari. She is no longer our property. She is your guest, and you may protect her as you wish." The world held its breath, waiting. "We also request dialogue," the Emperor continued. "Not as conquerors, not as masters, but as equals. You have shown us something we had forgotten. You have reminded us of a truth we buried long ago." He paused, and something in his ancient eyes seemed almost sad. "Perhaps it is time for us to remember." The Valari warship left Earth's orbit 6 hours later. It did not fire a single shot. It simply turned and flew away, disappearing into the darkness between stars. On Earth, people celebrated like never before. They danced and sang and hugged strangers on the street. They had done the impossible. They had faced an empire and won without firing a weapon. But the celebrations were just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, delegations arrived from across the galaxy. 17 different species sent ambassadors to Earth. They came not to conquer, not to trade, but to understand. "How did you do it?" they asked. "How did you stand together? How did you find the courage to defy the Valari?" The answer was always the same. Ambassador Kang Mirei gave it to the first delegation. Admiral Yun Hajin gave it to the second. Park Taiho gave it to the third. Because every life matters. Because no one should be thrown away. Because doing the right thing is more important than being safe. The aliens listened carefully. Some of them did not understand. Their societies were built on different values, different beliefs. But some of them started to think in new ways. 3 weeks after the Valari ship left, Nari walked out of the hospital in Seoul. Her silver skin was healed now, marked only by thin scars from the fire. Her broken leg was strong again. She wore simple human clothes, jeans and a sweater that Yuna had chosen for her. Reporters crowded around her, hundreds of cameras flashing. But she looked only at one person. Park Taiho stood at the front of the crowd, his face tired but happy. Nari walked up to him and did something she had learned from watching humans. She hugged him. The crowd fell silent. Cameras captured the moment. A silver alien girl, holding on to the human fisherman who had saved her life. "Thank you," she whispered in Korean. "Thank you for pulling me from the fire." Taiho hugged her back, his rough hands gentle on her thin shoulders. "Thank you," he said, "for showing us who we can be." Years passed. Nari stayed on Earth. She learned Korean fluently, then English, then Mandarin. She studied human history, fascinated by this species that has survived so much suffering and still chose to be kind. When she turned 25, she was appointed as Earth's first ambassador to the Valari Empire. She was still worthless by their standards, still a defective without psychic powers. But she had something more valuable than any gift. She had understanding. She could see both sides. She could help the Valari remember what they had forgotten and help humans prepare for a galaxy that did not always share their values. In Bizen, they built a statue near the harbor. It showed a simple scene, a man diving into waves reaching for someone in the fire. Beneath the statue was an inscription in 100 languages. Worth is not given. It exists. The Valari Emperor died 30 years later. His last words were strange for someone who had ruled with fear and power for so long. "I wish I had learned sooner," he said. "I wish I had understood what the humans knew." His successor, a young female who had grown up hearing stories of Earth, made her first official act a declaration. From that day forward, no Valari would be classified as worthless. No child would be thrown away because of how they were born. The change did not happen overnight. Old ways are hard to break. But it happened slowly, across generations, and it had all started because a fisherman heard someone screaming and could not walk away. Nari lived for 200 years, which was normal for her species. She spent her life building bridges between worlds, teaching others the simple truth that humans had shown her. Every life matters. Every person is worth fighting for, even when they cannot fight for themselves. Especially then, on the day she died, peaceful and surrounded by the children and grandchildren of the humans who had saved her, the galaxy was a different place. Not perfect, still full of conflict and cruelty and pain, but brighter, a little kinder, a little more willing to help strangers in need, because of one act of kindness, because of one worthless alien girl, because of one human who refused to walk away. That is the power of compassion. That is the weapon that made empires kneel, not violence, not strength, not technology, just love. Just a simple belief that everyone deserves to be saved. And that is why, across the galaxy, species still tell the story of Earth and the fisherman, and the silver girl who changed everything. Because some stories are worth remembering forever.